Guys, we have a banger for you. So grab the popcorn, grab a seat, relax, and listen up. You get the promotion, you buy the gadget, you finally achieve that goal that you've been chasing for months and years, and you feel that jolt of pure happiness. But then, almost as fast as it came, you're left with that same nagging feeling of, wait, this is it? If you feel like you're constantly on this emotional treadmill, trying to capture this feeling, but you're never quite able to grasp it for a long duration of time, you're not alone. Your brain has a built-in bias for unhappiness, but it doesn't have to be that way. Hi guys, I'm Manu and welcome to another episode of Sweet Money. I'm a Canadian and US CPA with a cool little accounting firm better known as Shandel CPA. Ever notice how the amazing quickly becomes normal? Or how that beautiful brand new car smell just becomes car? The thrill of a new phone dissipates after constant updates and relentless notifications. The corner office with a beautiful view that you've been chasing for years is now nothing more than a place where you send emails. Now guys, this isn't a personal flaw, nor is it meant to make you feel bad, okay? This is a well-known psychological fact known as the hedonic treadmill, or also known as the hedonic adaptation. And the theory is shockingly simple, all right? No matter what happens to you, good or bad, you will eventually drift back into a stable and normal state. Think of it like a treadmill. You can sprint on that machine as fast as you want, but the truth is, physically, you will still be in that exact same spot. And our emotional lives are eerily similar. You can chase all the accolades, all the wins, all the success you want, but eventually, emotionally, you will come back to that baseline state and wonder, hey, is this all there is to it? The most famous study on this topic is where they took a group of people who had A, won the lottery, and B, had gone through recent car accidents. Now, one would imagine that their emotional well-being would be polar opposites. But the truth is that after a short period of time, their happiness came back to a level where it was prior to that event taking place. Now, one group's brain went through an event where every material possession that they ever wanted became a reality, and the other group went through an event where they practically faced death. Yet, these life-altering events did not impact the brain's internal thermostat. It just reset or recalibrated to where it was prior to the event. And if you pause for a second and think about this, it's a very deeply uncomfortable thought that no matter how hard you're striving for something, you will eventually come back to where you were prior to achieving that goal that you're striving to achieve. And I guess the question is now, what's the point? So the mechanism is a double-edged sword. It saves us from being permanently shattered by tragedy, but it also caps our ability to sustain bliss. And despite our best efforts, the emotional balance eventually comes back to its baseline, which leaves us chasing for that next goal, that next hope, that next desire. And this endless cycle of constant pursuit of more, and more has huge and often destructive consequences on our physical, financial, and emotional well-being. So the obvious question is, why are we wired this way? Why does our brain have this sabotage button for our own contentment? And the answer is a cocktail of evolution and brain chemistry. From an evolutionary standpoint, the hedonic treadmill was a feature and not a bug. Now let me give you a very simple example, all right? Back in the day when our ancestors were wandering the earth trying to scavenge food as cavemen and cavewomen, they would find their meal and they would eat it, okay? Now, the dude who decided to go into hibernation for a week, chances are he was calling for his own death. Now, the individual who had that meal but decided to go into beast mode, stand up, and go start looking for that next meal had a greater chance of survival, right? And those are the genes, those survival genes that have been passed on from generation to generation to generation. And that gene of never being satisfied drove that constant drive to look for more food, better shelter, more power, more status, was our survival superpower. But in the modern world, where our basic necessities are being met, this ancient software keeps running in the background, right? Even though we really don't need it anymore. So what ends up happening is we end up chasing things that really don't add any satisfaction or gratification to our life, which is why we're in a constant state of dissatisfaction. And the chemical that drives this engine is called dopamine. And I'm sure you've heard about it, right? And for years, dopamine was called the pleasure molecule. But now, modern science says the pleasure molecule was the wrong way to describe dopamine. So what dopamine really is, it's a molecule that's constantly wanting and seeking, because pleasure, as we've discussed, is just not attainable. You see, dopamine is not about getting the reward, it's about chasing after the reward. And when you're doing that, then that chasing is what keeps us going. Because as soon as we achieve it, the satisfaction is gone, that dopamine rush is gone, and now it's like, what's next? And in those in the dating market, I guess the analogy I would use, it's the joy of the chase and not the joy of the catch itself. I did, but hey, it is what it is. But what you can do for me is give me some SLC. SLC stands for subscribe, like, and comment, right? And it won't cost you guys a penny, but what it does do, it helps this vital information get out to people who are seeking this, and it might actually help someone dealing with their financial distress and their financial issues. And so let's just do society a favor. The endless scrolling, and in YouTube has actually said that people don't have the attention span to sit there and watch a video. So if there's a video that they like, they'll watch it in shifts. Even movies now, we don't have the attention span to sit there for 2 hours and watch a video. We start fidgeting. We need food, we need to look at our phones, we get distracted. And this constant desire of the next dopamine attack, think of it like a drug, is becoming an epidemic, quite frankly, where our children can't even focus on their studies, which is why we're seeing these high failure rates and high dropout rates in universities. So in other words, just gonna go back to that phone analogy, it's not the content that keeps you hooked, it's the anticipation of what video will pop up next is what keeps you going. This constant anticipation of the next hit, this perpetual seeking for that next dopamine rush is what keeps you in a state of discontentment on a permanent level. Now, as an accountant, I can say this with authority. Nowhere is the damage of the hedonic treadmill more prevalent than in your finances. As our income rises, our desires and our expenses rise in lockstep. And this term in the finance world is called lifestyle inflation, meaning as your pay goes up, you want the nicer house, the nicer car, the nicer clothes, the nicer restaurants, nicer vacation, nicer. And the list keeps going. It doesn't end because there's just we're never satisfied. You're making more money, but you don't feel richer, right? Because your normal has now shifted. And this mindset keeps you on this hamster wheel of consumption. You work your tail off to afford these things that you believe will make you happier. And when you conquer that mountain, you think, oh no, this mountain wasn't it. Maybe it's the next mountain that will achieve that bliss that I'm looking for. And this is what we call the hedonic adaptation. So it really doesn't, and there was actually a study that came out in Forbes magazine where it said, a little over 50% of people who earn 6 digits in salary are living paycheck to paycheck, meaning less than half are able to manage their funds. And I've seen these people. I've seen people making $500,000 but don't have 2 nickels to rub together. So a very famous study from 2021, and it was followed up in 2023, painted a more nuanced picture. Okay, and what the latest study said was, for most people, happiness does keep rising with income well past 75. So the 75 is no longer a valid number, but the new number is $100,000. So at $100,000 of salary in this day and age, your happiness begins to plateau, right? So those who are making less than $100,000 are the unhappiest. And then as your salary starts to go up, you start becoming happier. But when you hit 100, your happiness now plateaus, you've peaked, and it does not go up after that. If it does, it's very, very short-lived. And the reason for this is, they say in this day and age, at $100,000, you have the ability to afford what you need in order to live an average lifestyle. You have an average house, car, vacation, the food, you're good to go, and all your basic needs in life are being met. So at $100,000, your material needs are pretty much taken care of. And now what you're seeking after that $100,000 plateau is you're trying to fix emotional issues, heartbreak, loneliness, and even chronic depression, right? However, money cannot cure or solve these internal challenges that we face. So this relentless pursuit of pleasure through spending is very, you think it promises fulfillment, but it's very, very short-lived. But what it does do, it leaves you in financial debt, and it sends you right back to where you started from day one. Now, this hedonic treadmill isn't just emptying out your wallets, right? It's also having a negative impact on your relationships. When your main goal in life is to chase that pleasurable hit, your connections with others becomes very superficial and very transactional. And you start seeing people as a source of stimulation and not as a source of a deep connection. Think of it, you start looking for friends who can now go with you on your expensive shopping sprees or your lavish vacations and kind of live in the same neighborhood as you do and drive the same cars that you have. However, are they really filling that genuine emotional need of human connection that we all require? Romantic partnerships are also suffering. It happens a lot now in this dating world when you swipe left and right and you get this constant dopamine hit, right? Even when we're in a relationship, people are still keeping those apps on their phone and they're still swiping, thinking, hey, is it possible to upgrade over what I currently have or who I currently have? And social media has put this issue, this hedonic treadmill, on steroids, because now we're starting to compare ourselves to social media influencers, right? People who are driving these fancy cars and they're taking these private jets and this and that, and you're thinking, hey, why can't I have this? And then you start feeling resentment towards whatever it is that you do have, and your achievements start to become insignificant in your own eyes. And you start resenting not only those around you, but also yourself. And when your expectations always seem out of reach, you are now heading towards a mental state of depression. Now, research draws a very fascinating line between happiness and meaning, okay? Now, if you hang out with your friends, you'll get a boost of happiness. It's for a few hours, you hang out, you chill, you're doing your thing, right? However, if you have deep family connections and you're solving family issues and challenges and trying to, navigate messy problems, and you're working cohesively and in synergy with your family, that will then give you a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose. Now, a life spent chasing happiness means that you're constantly avoiding difficult situations or challenges that seem too daunting. However, if you're chasing meaning and purpose, you're now putting yourself in the line of fire. And that is much more rewarding at an intrinsic level. And it also creates this shift in mindset, whereas when you seek happiness, you're thinking, what can this person do for me? How can they bring me happiness? But when you're seeking meaning and purpose, it's like, okay, now what can I do for the betterment of society? What can I do for the betterment of my family? So you're probably thinking, if our brain is in default setting, right, on this hedonic treadmill of constant dissatisfaction, are we doomed? What's the purpose of even watching this video? Because I'm just going to be the way I am. But that's not the case, and that's the good news. So you don't have to turn off the video just yet. If you can understand the hedonic treadmill and kind of visualize how it's impacting you, what you've ultimately done is you've seen the matrix. You can now envision the matrix in front of you. And once you see the matrix, you can't unsee it. So here are 4 practical, science-based strategies to help you permanently get off this hedonic treadmill. Number 1, practice frugal hedonism. Now, this isn't about depriving yourself. It's about squeezing the maximum pleasure you can from your purchase by being mindful. You have to accept in your mind that we're pleasure-seeking animals, okay? We have to come to this agreement, but you also have to accept that seeking happiness or obtaining happiness does not require you to spend a ton of money. So instead of buying 10 mediocre fast food meals, why don't you go to a grocery store and splurge on premium ingredients and make yourself a gourmet meal? And this concept is called lean against luscious. For example, if you go for a run in a hot summer day and you come back, if you take a cold shower, it will feel much nicer than as opposed to taking a hot shower, right? So you want to enjoy that moment when that cold water hits you. It's being mindful and of what it is that you're getting at that point in time. And by consciously creating space between your episodes of pleasure, you keep your mind and your senses alive, because you can now savor what it is that you did experience for a longer period of time. Number 2, I'm sure you've heard this before. Invest in experiences and not in things. And I'll tell you why. The science behind it is that when you buy something, a shirt, a car, whatever, you wear it, you use it, and that feeling disappears. Because you might buy that BMW, but then you see someone else driving that Ferrari, and now all of a sudden your BMW feels inadequate, even though you spent a lot of money on it. However, if you take a trip, now that trip is your experience. Only you know how you felt during that trip. No one can compare that with you, because how you felt, what you did, the people that you met, the conversations that you had, the weather, the sights, it was your perception. And you cannot compare that. When you cannot compare, you don't know whose trip was better and whose was worse. Therefore, invest in the experience, not in the product itself. Number 3, cultivate gratitude, right? Now this, many religions, sages, yogis, they all talk about this, right? You have to be thankful for what it is that you have. And we've become so materialistic that we've forgotten the entire art of being grateful. And the only time when I guess Christians, when they, are thankful is during Thanksgiving, and then for Hindus, it might be, Diwali, and for some other religion, it might be something else. For the Jewish, it might be Hanukkah, right? And then after that, we go back into our normal lives, and we kind of forget what it is that we have, whether it's our family or material possessions or, our health, and the list goes on and on and on. So get into the habit of being grateful, not just on those special occasions, but every single day, and preferably every moment that you're breathing. And number 4, guys, go after meaningful goals. I'm going to be as blunt as possible here. Stop chasing achievements, okay? That big house, that big car, that big this, big that won't do anything for you. I guarantee you. It just won't. It's very temporary, because someone else will buy something that's bigger than yours, and you'll be miserable and angry and depressed, and it'll be everyone's fault, okay? Instead, choose or chase meaningful purposes, right? Join not-for-profits, join groups that are doing good in society. And if you can't find one, start your own. Just go to nursing homes. There's people there who would love to have a conversation with you, right? Learn from their experience. There's children in hospitals that would love to speak with someone, right? Just go to a food bank and just, help dish out some food to people in need. There's so much we can do just around us, right? Have that sense of giving, of a higher purpose in life. And this shift will turn, it's a paradigm shift from what can I get versus what can I give. So listen, guys, you are not permanently trapped on this hedonic treadmill. You can get off. It's not easy, but it can be done. There are years and years and years of conditioning which you're covered into, right? You've been lathered by this conditioning of want. So you have to have that honest conversation with yourself, and please keep that phone aside and just be sincere and transparent with yourself, and come to that conscious agreement or contractual agreement that I will now be more mindful and thankful and more conscious in the decisions that I make in my everyday life, right? So I have full faith in you. I know you can do it. And remember, it all starts with a simple conversation.